The Catholic Morning Show.
This is Iowa Catholic Radio, and we're delighted to have you with us. Beau Bonner, Deacon Mark Campbell, just gave you a doctorate, Deacon. Ayden, Pugh, and Alexia Baker, all of us grateful you're here with us. Tomorrow, you'll want to make sure to check in. We'll have Father Chris Rising, author Casey Chalk, and Aaron Lorch all being a part of the show. Right now, though, before we send you off for tomorrow, we have one more guest that you'll want to make sure to listen to. Let's go now to our interview with David Delio. He is the chair of the Theology Department at Jesuit High School in New Orleans, president of Image and Likeness, and we have been talking to him about the human heart, its role in theology and spirituality, and we're going to keep doing this throughout Lent. Dave, thanks for coming on the Catholic Morning Show.
Hey, Beau. Great to talk to you again.
So we left off with some scriptural images, mostly from the Old Testament. Let's talk about New Testament understandings of the heart and maybe how that gives an alley-oop to patristic thinkers like St. Augustine.
Yeah, we were talking about, we had left off with 1 Samuel 16:7, and I was talking about how we kind of look at things through the appearances, and the Hebrew word is mareh, and it's kind of like what we see on the surface and how we kind of evaluate people. And our goal, and really what the teaching in that passage is to get us to see things as God would see them from the heart. And the thing that I want to kind of step back into is we want to say, like, well, we do things with our free will. Is the free will the same thing as the heart? Or, we do think, we think things in our brain or think things in our mind. Is that the same thing as the heart? And I want to jump to one from 2 Corinthians 9:7, where St. Paul says something that's really beautiful. He says, each one of us must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, but for God loves a cheerful giver. And that idea of giving and deciding in the heart. In other words, what Paul's saying is it's not this kind of reluctant idea of like, well, okay, I got to give, I got to tithe to the church, or I got to spend some time with the wife and spend some time with the kids. What he's saying is there's this kind of deeper, and there's a lot of scripture to kind of point to this of commitment. And what I wanted to take from that one though is that there's a Latin word, delectio, and it many times gets described as love, but it actually, the root of it means decision, and it means this kind of what Paul is saying, this decision love. And St. Augustine used delectio as much or more than amor or caritas, which are the other 2 Latin words, really to speak of love. And so I wanted to kind of, in other words, because there's something in Augustine's life and Augustine's background, as we, in the Confessions, he talks about, our hearts are restless until they rest in thee, Lord. And what he was trying to say is that until I've decided for you, and until I've allowed you to kind of come and inhabit the deepest interior place where all the wounds and all the memories have happened, I'm literally going to be just jumping around, moving from one thing to the next, and not stable. In his life, if you read the Confessions, which I think is a book that every Christian of every stripe who has that capacity should read that book. And it's because of the interior life that he talks about, but really it's that idea of who is going to be and who is going to be at the center of your heart. Because Augustine, most of the Confessions talks about how his heart was so divided.
Well, I think about that word delectable, right? And so what a wonderful way to think about it. Delectable means like it's something to be worthy of being chosen. It's worthy of the decision. It's worthy of the commitment. And we use it like frivolously, like, a lot of words like, oh, what a delectable, food that we're eating or whatever. But truly the delectable things in our life, God, other human beings, causes, are delectable because they are worthy of the firm commitment of our heart. And that is a fantastic way to talk about St. Augustine, but really the spiritual life.
It is. And that's what I wanted to kind of get at is, so the heart is not just like, hey, follow your heart, follow your emotions, and because those are actually, emotions come and go. They pass, and they pass rather quickly. Whereas the heart has this kind of like this abiding and stable presence that kind of pushes through that stuff. And that's what I think the great spiritual masters are saying. We get the word heart, which is a German translation of the Greek word cardia, like you hear cardiac arrest, but in the Latins translate that as cardo, right, or core. And so it goes into Latin as core. It's at our core. It's the most centered and stable part of us if it is centered upon its author and origin, which is God. And that's like Augustine's whole thing is, he says in Latin, inquietum est cor nostrum. In other words, our restless hearts. But he's saying in a sense, it signals to us that there's something going on deep within us that its only solution is to find itself in God. And I just think that, and to that end, I just wanted to make another point. And, he writes about it many times in his letters. He talks about it in De Trinitate, but he talks about that virtue, what are our virtues in lives? We hear about the cardinal virtues of prudence and justice and temperance and courage or fortitude. But Augustine says all virtue is simply the ordering of your loves. And so your vices are also the disordering of your loves. And so if you're ordered towards money and power and honor and fame, your loves are disordered, and that's what makes them vices. And if your loves are ordered towards God and towards relationship and towards love of other people, especially those who are most needy, then your loves are rightly ordered, and therefore you are the virtuous person. So what makes you virtuous? He kind of transforms the whole system by saying it's by you reveal your virtue by what you love and how you love. And I think that, and I've been using that in my years of teaching virtue. I've kind of moved to that system of you can talk about all the cardinal virtues and its development, but at the root of it, what is the measure of virtue? It's not simply excellence or manliness or any of those other words that kind of are tied to it. I think Augustine blows it open and transforms it and says, look at what you love and I'll tell you what your virtue is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the vir, right? The living, the virality, the living
right.
thing. And you start to think about that in terms of what drives you to act in a habitual way towards things. And
That's
it's
right.
not just love or even just mere desire, how we will say that in English, but again, that committed, deep, attached thing that propels us towards those objects of love.
That's right. And then also what you're moving towards, that's your evaluative point. Like that's where you need to evaluate and kind of look at to attend to, do I really want that promotion, but will that promotion will that ruin my relationship with my kids because I'll be working, 80 hours a week now, and there's no more going to sports games and no more going to dance recitals, things like that, which is what kind of job, what kind of career, what kind of work are you doing that would inhibit family life, for example? I mean, amongst many things, so it's being attentive to what are you being drawn to? Because in other words, work is good and any given job can be good. But if that job now becomes your life, then it moves from a good to a bad because you've disordered the love of what kind of our primary loves of our heart and home. And
we got about a couple minutes left, so I don't know if you got a quick word to leave us with Augustine, and then explain to people where they can find out more with what you're up to in this regard with your image and likeness nonprofit.
Yeah, Augustine gives kind of 5 things that are essential for understanding the heart. First, the heart is made for God and will be restless until it finds him. Second, God is found within, deeper than our own inmost self. Third, we are moved by what we love. The heart has this kind of gravity. The divided heart is kind of our current state. Most all of us are sitting here with a heart that's both kind of black and red, or hard and soft. And then the last one is truth reaches the heart not through argument, but from one heart speaking to the other. And that kind of leads us into St. John Henry Newman. You can find part of my work at I'm a president. I've become the president of this really great new nonprofit called Image and Likeness, and it's image with the letter N and then likeness.org. And you can go see. We have some great things going on there. Especially we're really building up a healing ministry that's been going on for a while, but we're kind of kind of resurrecting it in a new way called Broken and Beloved. And it's really about, it's a women's ministry healing that my wife does with a really great Catholic psychologist, Veronica Lenzi. And they really try to get to the heart of women who are in crisis, who have experienced trauma in life, and to find where they're broken, but then how to see how they're beloved, and then what to do beyond that. And so that's one of the beautiful elements of what we're doing with Image and Likeness.
Absolutely wonderful. David Delio, chair of the Theology Department at Jesuit High School in New Orleans, president of Image and Likeness. He's joining us throughout Lent, talking about the biblical, patristic, theological, scriptural, spiritual understanding of the human heart. Dave, as always, thanks for coming on the Catholic Morning Show.
Great talking with you both.
Listen to the Catholic Morning Show weekdays at 7 a.m. Central on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network, iowacatholicradio.com, or the Iowa Catholic Radio app.